Hey folks, how are you? Good to see you, Rochelle. Michigan, Pennsylvania. I guess all hell broke loose just because I took the day off, huh? So I'm kayaking down a river and all of a sudden my phone is literally shaking the kayak. So anyway, I did in fact, somebody just asked, we had a great trip. I'm not as sunburned as I seem to look on this screen. And I'm tired. I have to say it was a long paddle. All right, so I'm going to let some people come in here, although we're already at 4,600, so maybe I don't have to wait too long. The big news today, of course, is that President Joe Biden has announced that he will not seek the nomination for president in 2024. And that throws the entire race open on the Democratic side. But what I want to do today is look at a little bit bigger picture because I know people are frightened. This was a surprise. You know that I had suggested that this would not be a good move for the Democrats because people needed to feel guardrails were in place. I am not so sure that that's the case any longer, and I'll explain why that is the case, why I think that. All right, so let me start first of all from the obvious position. And remember, I'm gonna take a broader look here than seems to me people were taking when they were reacting to the news itself. And the broader look is to remind you that our system is still in place. Biden is not dead. Nothing earth-shattering has happened on that front. He has said he will not seek the nomination in 2024, even though he was the presumptive nominee. And I'll explain why he did that in just a second. But it's really important to remember that he is still president for the next 6 months. Why does that matter? It matters not only because it's good to have stability in the presidency and because he's doing a fabulous job, but because going forward into this election, and I should emphasize, I have no inside knowledge at all. Not only do I not have I not talked to any of the principals, I haven't talked to any of the staff of the principals or anything. I know no more than anybody else does. But it would not surprise me if it went into his calculation in whether or not to move forward, the recognition that in a moment of such profound instability in our country, it is not a bad thing to have in the White House somebody who does not have a stake in the outcome of the election. That is, if the Republicans behave badly after the election or in the run up to the election, as we suspect they will, it does not hurt to have a president in place who isn't running so that the Republicans can't say, oh, you're only doing that because you're trying to give yourself a leg up. That's actually not they're not going to be able to do that because he has pulled himself out of the running. Also, in the next 6 months, he will be above that fray and he will also be able to move in world affairs in a way that he might not have, where he's spending too much time worrying about being reelected. So I'm seeing all these sort of paeans to how wonderful a president he was and all this kind of stuff. He's still there. He hasn't gone anywhere. This is just about the next term. So be calm on that front, in that this changes his equation in an important way going forward in a moment that is so fraught in the United States. So there are people, I am one of them, who think Biden has been an extraordinary president, and I didn't see it coming. But he's not done yet. Just remember that there is still a big picture on that front going on, and we will factor into that big picture the fact that he has stepped away from the presidency when he certainly didn't have to do that. And that will go into the way people evaluate this presidency and the way he will be able to move going forward. Now, one of the things that I think we're seeing is a lot of people sort of playing their violins right now. And they certainly seem to be the people who went after him to get out of the race to begin with. And that's upsetting a lot of people, I think, probably understandably. But that is the least they can do at this point. All right. So if we remember that Biden is still there, he's not going anywhere. He has just as much power as he did at 9 o'clock this morning, maybe more in some ways, because he can operate without anybody saying, oh, you're just trying to get reelected. So he's still there. What happened here? Let's start with the Democrats because, in a way, they're the less interesting thing happening right now because we know what's happening. After Biden's debate in, I'm afraid I'm drawing a blank on the date of it now. I'm sorry, June 27th, maybe. I don't remember when it was. But he gave it a really bad debate performance. And Trump did as well, but the media jumped all over Biden. So there's another story going on here. There's another story in the background here, and that is what's happening with the media. All right. So Biden turned in this bad debate performance. And since then, he's done a whole bunch of not debates, interviews and rallies. I mean, he's been out there, he's been talking to people, he's done press conferences, he's been fine. But the press really went with this story that he was old and incompetent, and this was going to be a problem for him going forward. And it was never clear to me. You will notice if you read me at night that I never really talked about this. And people wrote privately, messaged me and asked why I wasn't talking about it. And I said, because there are no facts. I can't tell what's real and what is not. It seems like one of these things people are going on vibes, and it's not clear to me if this really is a concern among the Democrats, or if this is just being pushed by the media because they feel like they need to get more clicks because the media is in real crisis right now. And I felt like I could never accurately pin it down. But there was no doubt that within the Democratic Party, it was becoming a bigger and bigger deal. And finally, it appears that Biden made the decision that he had to go because there was such pressure on him from people who were responding to these vibes. I will say again, as I have said 1,000 times, in the times that I've spent with him, he was 100% on the ball, seemed to be doing stuff. He has a speech impediment, but I never saw it as an issue at all. But it obviously became too much for him to deal with. So he has stepped back. I'm going to say a little bit about that stepping back in just a second, which I think is actually really interesting. But so where does that leave the Democrats? The Democrats, as I said all along, have this issue because they have to nail together a certain kind of coalition. That coalition is going to be different in 2028, but in 2024, it looked as if the Democrats had to nail together a certain amount of the white population, about 40%, the majority of black voters, between 90 and 95%. I'm sorry, I've just been on the water and I don't have the numbers. I haven't actually been working today, ironically, so I don't have the numbers right at my fingertips. But I think it's about 65% of Hispanic voters, and then a certain percentage of young voters, depending on how many turn out. And they need a lot of people to turn out in this election. And the trick to Biden and Harris was that they nailed that coalition together. So going forward without Biden, what Biden did, of course, is he endorsed Kamala Harris. And that honestly just seems to me to be a no-brainer because without Kamala Harris on the ticket, you're going to really lose black voters who don't want to see her passed up, and also women. I mean, we've been doing the footwork here for a lot of years. And if you pass over Kamala Harris, there's a lot of people who they may turn out and vote, but they're not going to be knocking on doors the way that they have been. And Gretchen Whitmer, who is the very popular governor from Michigan, has already said she will not challenge Harris for the nomination. And my guess is you're going to see more and more people. Josh Shapiro from Pennsylvania has said the same thing. You're going to see more and more people saying we're not going to challenge her for the nomination, with the recognition that would sink the tickets. So the question will be who gets the vice presidential nod if, in fact, she gets the presidential nomination, who will get the vice presidential nod? And the answer to that is that the Democrats are going to have to figure out how to pick up the same people that Biden appealed to. And there are obvious candidates in that running to do that. The most obvious is somebody like Senator Kelly, Mark Kelly from Arizona, who brings on a number of things to the ticket, including a very strong stance against gun violence because his wife was a victim of gun violence. But whoever they pick will need to bring on those people that Biden really appealed to, because without him on the ticket, they need to fill that hole. And the other thing that is really interesting about the Democrats in this moment is, of course, Biden put together an incredibly talented staff. The cabinet officers, Secretary of State, I mean, they're really, really, really good. And so, one of the things that I suspect you will see is not wanting to mess that up. Somebody said to me, "Oh, they should nominate Secretary of State Antony Blinken," and my answer would be, "Why? He's doing such a great job where he is. Why would you want to rip that up and try and put him in a place where most people haven't? I mean, I shouldn't say I haven't heard of him, but that's probably not gonna happen." And similarly, you can think of other cabinet officers who are doing a really fabulous job right where they are. So the issue for the Democrats is that they had in the past a reputation for being flighty, and this doesn't help that. But that might be overridden by the enthusiasm that people are bringing to the table now. And I would say I have been very surprised at the amount right now that I have seen of people are angry at the loss of Biden and from the ticket and are like feeling as if that was pushed by the media and by certain donors, and that they would like to say, okay, you did that, but now we're going to be all out for Harris, and you better be along on that. Now, again, remember, I'm speaking the day it happens, so we haven't really seen things how they're going to play out yet, and that's important to remember. But I was concerned about the confusion that would happen, and so far, the Democrats seem to be absolutely on top of it, and there doesn't seem to be the kind of confusion that I was concerned about. It doesn't look like they're headed for a contested primary. I'd be surprised if they were. But we'll see how that plays out on that side. So far, it appears that there is real momentum building behind Vice President Harris, and that would obviate what I was talking about, the confusion. There wouldn't be any. So that, I think, is actually really interesting. It's obviously all of this is somewhat unprecedented, but I think it's really important that you remember that Biden is still there as president, because I think that's really going to matter in these next unsettled 6 months. And then there does seem to be very solid support for Harris to step in, and she's terrific. By the way, I've written about her and talked about her, but she's great. All right, so that's sort of where we are. But I want to talk about the Republicans, my specialty, of course, and one of the things that's sort of astonishing to me about what Biden did and how he did it. I texted from that lovely river I was on to say that Biden's timing has always been exquisite. I mean, he's very good at many things, but his sense of timing is fabulous. So, in a lot of different ways. So, what is interesting about the timing here, stepping aside from the nomination when he did, is that the Republicans have locked into J.D. Vance as the vice president. And that is a huge problem for the Republican ticket. And the reason for it is this. Donald Trump was already having a really hard time with American women because of the overturning of Roe v. Wade. And the Republicans really have tried to back away from Project 2025 and from the inroads that it made on women's rights, especially with its call for a national abortion ban. And I want to be very clear. Anybody who says there is not a national abortion ban in the Project 2025, Agenda 47, and the Republican platform doesn't understand language, because the call for a national abortion ban is in all three of those things, especially in the Republican platform. That's why the 14th Amendment was in there. I wrote a letter about it recently. I'm not going to go into it again now. I'll do something else on that in the future. But they were already in trouble with women. And you can tell that they were in trouble with women. And I'll tell you a little bit more about what happened over the weekend. But J.D. Vance, who did not appear to be the person Trump really wanted, he was the choice of Peter Thiel and the anti-Ukraine people in the Republican Party, and the Christian nationalists. J.D. Vance is on record calling for a national abortion ban, saying that women should stay in abusive marriages, going after the idea of women's rights across the board, right? And so there is this really strong anti-woman strand of the Republican Party, and they really doubled down on it with J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance is a radically right Catholic. He's an extremist Catholic. He converted to Catholicism. He is backed by somebody who said that women shouldn't have the vote. I mean, they really double down on it. And you can see that, and Trump's been trying to back away from it. And you can see that their nervousness about this over the weekend. Trump gave a speech in Grand Rapids, Michigan, I think. Sorry, I also haven't eaten today. Um, um, we didn't expect to go as far as we did. So in that rally at Grand Rapids, Trump talked about slaughter in the suburbs, by which he is trying to whip up suburban women, especially, to be concerned about immigrants and what he insists is immigrant crime in their neighborhoods. In fact, crime is plummeting, by huge numbers. Between 2023 and 2024, it's dropped. Violent crime has dropped by more than 22%, and property crime has dropped as well. And we know that immigrants actually commit crimes at a lower rate than native-born Americans. But he's really trying to hammer on that, because the only way they can get those suburban women back is by convincing them that their lives are in danger. So right when they have nailed J.D. Vance onto the ticket, Biden walks away, leaving behind him Kamala Harris, who has been out there across the country all year, not all year, all her entire term, defending women's reproductive rights. It is becoming, and of course, the idea of putting a woman in the presidency is a direct attack on the Republicans' increasing insistence that women shouldn't have lives outside the home. So you've seen this again with after the shooting of the 13th of July, the radical right came out hammering on the idea that women shouldn't be employed by the Secret Service, and that any kind of women being hired just meant that a better man wasn't hired. And this was all over right-wing media. And now here's this setup. So now the Republicans have a huge problem, because they have the issue of the fact they've doubled down on anti-woman stuff, and women are hugely important in this election. And at the same time, they have also put J.D. Vance on that ticket, and he's stuck there now. So now they have another problem as well, and that is that we now have the oldest person ever nominated for the presidency, and that's Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is slurring his words. He is falling asleep at his own convention and at his own criminal trial. He's can't put together a coherent thought. He's mentally in huge trouble, or seems to be in huge trouble. I'm not a doctor, but I have listened to him slide downhill since 2015. And he's at the top of the ticket. And the Republicans just made age and competency the central issue for a president. And there they are. So now they're trying desperately to say, well, Biden should step down from the presidency altogether. And with the idea that this somehow is going to make it look like they're back on top of things. And of course he's not going to. He's doing the presidency absolutely fine. But now they've got to deal with the fact that they have this old guy who keeps falling asleep and is in trouble in all these different legal ways at the top of their ticket. Do you think that's going to stand? I think they're going to have a really big fight in their party now, trying to get Trump to step down. Because then they'd have J.D. Vance, which is the one that they all wanted. And there's no way Trump wants to go anywhere. And will Trump's people turn out for J.D. Vance? Actually, I think a lot of them will now. I mean, for a long time, I thought they wouldn't switch over. But because he is such a right-wing Christian nationalist, I think a lot of them will. Will the Trump cult people flip over? I mean, when I texted from the river that Biden is absolutely genius at timing, he could not have thrown a bigger monkey wrench into the Republicans. If he'd done it before the convention, And they had had the opportunity to put the guy from North Dakota, whose name I've already forgotten, Borgum, on the ticket. Nobody knew who he was. I don't even know what his positions are. Or if he'd put Elise Stefanik on, or God forbid, if he had put Nikki Haley on, the Democrats would have a huge problem. But as it is, they have walked down this alleyway and they're right up against the wall in this extreme Project 2025, anti-woman, national abortion ban, stop getting rid of guns, overturn all the guns, the stuff that the Biden administration has done to try and limit gun ownership or try and put safeguards around guns. Climate change. They've walked down that alleyway and they're up against the wall, and then Biden just slammed the door shut behind them, which is, I mean, I got nothing. If he was going to step down, he could not have done it in a more genius way. So it's important again to take a big picture look here and recognize that that many people are disappointed that Biden stepped down. And yet the chaos that I expected after something like that has not materialized, at least so far. But because they were locked into J.D. Vance, the Republicans have been locked into J.D. Vance, they've not created, and the fact that they're, after telling everybody forever that age and competence was the central issue, that's now the top of their ticket. And again, if you were writing this in a novel or a TV series, it wouldn't be, you couldn't do this. You couldn't write this because it's too perfect. So looking forward, I will be keeping my eye on what Biden does, because again, remember, this is not about a man at the top of a ticket. This is about the United States of America. And Biden has been one of the most selfless and public-spirited people in that office ever. So he's not going to stay home and play tiddlywinks. What's he going to do with this 6 months? And I don't think he's going to fritter it away, first of all. Second of all, certainly very curious about what the Democrats will do. But so far, they seem to be behaving pretty well. The Republicans are going to freak out. You can already see it happening. They're going to throw everything, every racist, sexist thing they possibly can at Kamala Harris. But I'm not sure that's going to help, because they're deep, their committed voters are already with them, but they got to pick up the people in the swing states, and they got to pick up the people in the suburbs, and they're not going to turn around and vote for J.D. Vance and Donald Trump. They're just not. Certainly not on women's issues, which are the votes that they need to have. So all those things are in play. But where I want to go is to the final point I wanted to make today, and that is, what do we all do in this moment? And one of the things that I've been trying to fight now for a number of years is this sense that things were being done to us that we couldn't control. And one of the things that happened, as my kayak is vibrating from my phone exploding, was how many people seemed very angry that Biden had stepped down and felt that it had been imposed on them. And I'm not going to argue with that, by the way, but the first thing that came to my mind was outrage after the fact doesn't help anything. And all I could think about was, I don't want my phone to start buzzing on November 6th with people going, oh my God, what happens now? The time to get outraged about the fact that the Republicans are running somebody who over the weekend praised authoritarians, has said he wants to be a dictator, has put forth a plan to take over the United States and to turn it into a Christian dictatorship, which I looked up the numbers this morning. Only about 6% of Americans actually want that. The time to get furious about that is not November 6th. It is July 21st. It's really important going forward that all of us stop thinking about the president and the vice president and all of those people as somehow imposing things on us. They work for us. We don't work for them. They work for us. And you know what else? So does the media. The media works for us. So rather than sitting there saying, oh my God, they're not asking about Trump's ear yet, or they're not dealing with his mental incapacity, or they're not holding Trump to the same standards that they're holding Biden to, or that they might hold some future Democratic nominee to, call them out on it every single day, and share all the accurate information, not crap. We don't need, none of us needs any more crap, no matter what side it comes from. The next about 100 days really are going to depend on us saying what we want of our country, of us getting out the vote, of us holding our leaders to account, of us holding our media to account. So when you are feeling like you don't have control, we still do. We still get to choose our president. We still get to choose the party in power. Mind you, no party you elect is going to do everything you want it to. But in this particular election, we have on one side somebody who has said he wants to be a dictator and has put in place all the pieces to do that. And we have another group of people who say they want to preserve the guardrails of our democracy under which we have lived for 248 years. I don't care if they put a head of eelgrass in that position. That's the party that we all need to vote for up and down the ticket, whether there's a D or an I or a G or an R by your name, because that's how we preserve this country for the next election. Remember that going forward, this is about making sure we preserve American democracy, and that's on us. And I got to tell you, if you look at what Biden did today, he threw his reputation, his presidency, himself on that cause and said, I will do it if you will do it. So going forward, I have a minute left. So going forward, please remember that they work for us. We don't work for them. And that we have 100 days to preserve American democracy. If we do that on the other side, first of all, we can hash out our differences on the other side. But second of all, think about what we could do. Think about what we could do with a new generation of leaders, with new ideas, with new ways to look at the world, with new languages and new music and new art. And the fact that our president was willing to do that and say, go for it. You want to take this a bit in your teeth and run with it? I'll stand aside so you can do that. If he could do it, we can do it. So all I can say is, I know people are panicked. Don't be panicked. There's still a president in place. There's still a vice president. The whole cabinet's still in place. Everything is still rock solid. Biden's going to be in office for the next 6 months. Lots can happen in that. And right now, what we're watching is the Democrats trying to pull together to move us forward. The Republicans are in real trouble right now. And at the end of the day, it's all up to us. So thank you for being here. And I'm sorry, somebody just, if you didn't get that, yeah, we need both houses too. I mean, we got to get rid of these crazy right-wing extremists who are not Republicans. I mean, they have that label now, but they're not traditional Republicans. They're trying to take over our country. Still our country. We can get it back. All right, so thank you for being here. I'm actually now going to go write tonight's letter. I'd actually written early tonight so that Buddy and I could spend the day on the water, and that went out the window. I expect everything else is going to stay exactly the same from me, except that I'm ramping up my presence both here and in a couple other places you're going to hear about. Everything is still free, still no copyrights on it. So there are some guardrails still very much still in place. So I will see you. I don't even know what the day is. I'll see you on the normal schedule. Thanks for being here.